Hey, how are you doing? Shit, let me go flying. Of course, I'm gonna go flying. Balancing act. It is. I put some of the images I'm going to use tonight on the website. Doing pretty good, actually. Chill. Kind of chilled all day long because I was so busy for so long. I don't think that this camera situation is going to work in the way that I want it to. Do it right there. Watch me figure this out. Just give me a hot second, okay? Put the other one away too. Sorry, guys. I know. I tried. I thought I had it figured it out, but then it went fucking sideways. Just, it's always that way. Maybe it'll work if I do it that way. No. There we go. We're just going to have to leave it like that tonight. Anyway, so the book is up. It's on the web or on Amazon. You can find it through the cool merch page on the widdaord.com. And then they wouldn't let me put it up for free. They insisted that I put a minimum of 99 cents on it so that they can make their money. And I get like 35 cents per book, which I'm so far. I mean, I'm putting it on Kindle. Like I promoted it through Kindle, and then I'm promoting it through the other things so that it's free through both of those. And then, or not through Kindle, but the Kindle Live or Unlimited. And I'm looking at 2 other sites to publish it through that it'll be free access on. So hopefully within the next few days, but I needed to take a break because I had ultra focused for like a couple weeks. So, and this is the first in a 3-part series because it's on the rights. Like we have 3 inalienable rights that are pretty much universal. And I'm going with more of the universal ones than the United States ones, though the book does focus on some shit that happens in the United States that, is amazing considering their rights, right? So it is up. And then tonight, if you want to see some of the images that I have, if you're not in TikTok, and I'm not going to be able to pull them up on TikTok, I'm going to have to show them on the computer anyways. If you want to see some of the images that I have on these different subjects, like cave paintings, like the picture behind me, go to the Widda Ord and look at this week, and it will show you those pictures I've got. And you can even kind of, I think, follow the embedded images back to the actual website that has the article that discusses the pictures in depth as well. So I can absolutely give the definition of Widda. Widda is the oldest etymology of the word witch. Wid is, it equals knowledge in ancient Proto-Indo-European, ancient Irish Gaelic, ancient Gaelic. And it, the last part of it, da, means feminine. The Widda are those who study the knowledge of the feminine, where the Druids are those who study the knowledge of the masculine. The Druid in Druid is oak, and the Wid in Druid is knowledge, same as the first half of Widda. These are the educated class of the Celtic indigenous people. They are the doctors, the law keepers, they are the advisors, they are the teachers, they are the scientists, and they, pretty much study for the Celtic people, and they pass that knowledge on. And so I use it because even though I have degrees in Western science, I don't consider myself a Western scientist because I don't look at things in a Western scientist thought process, right? So, hello. And so that's why I use Widda. That and it is way more connected to uh, the reality of what witch is, right? The reality of what the word witch really is, because the word witch truly is the healers. It is the people who are taking care of the people. They use energy and they use herbs and they use science and they use knowledge to heal the people. And this is something that was stamped out when Christianity became a state religion. So for me, it's important to understand that witch doesn't mean the craft, a child of the 80s and 90s, that which doesn't mean the craft, that which actually means that indigenous connection to ancestral heritage, to energy, to the world around you, to the plants, to the animals around you, right? So, and yes, and it comes in many different forms across the globe, but in all of those forms originally, it did not mean the craft that we see when we think of the word witch. I actually had somebody tell me in my early 20s, I was in this tiny little hick town in Eastern Washington, and they were from, oh, oh, I can't remember which country it was, but they were from a country in East Africa. And they had ended up in this stick ass town out in the middle of nowhere. And they were very, very religious and beautiful young woman I was talking to. We were in some class together, and she was like, the reason for jack-o'-lanterns is because witches would kill babies and render their fat and make candles. And I'm like, oh no, we never did. Like, no, 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 no. We were the healers. We were the ones who gave love. We were like, no, that's just not. And I think so many people in society have equated the warded green hag with the reality, which was, you know, your wise woman, the woman in the village who makes sure that all the babies are born safe, who knows which tea to use to prevent a baby, who knows which teas, who makes fire cider in the winter, right? So that everybody in the village and everybody in the community is safe, right? So I don't know what you think I'm not saying nothing nice about. Like, I thought everything I said was pretty positive, unless you got butt hurt over the one phrase about Christianity, which all I said was a state religion that stamped out everything else, which that's a solid ass fact. Not a butt hurt, not a butt hurt. Sorry. Can't accept accountability. Don't accept the wins. Can't accept the losses. Don't accept the wins. There's this failure. Accept this failure, or don't go, yay, us. Right? Yeah, well, and it was a term for headhunting by the time the colonists came to the Turtle Islands. Absolutely, because it had been, in the driving out. So, in the same way that when colonists came to Turtle Island, they suppressed and drove out the indigenous thought processes that was here in Turtle Island. When the colonists got to Britain, so of course, Britain is Celtic originally, and then the Romans leave and the Anglo-Saxons come in and invade, right? And so when the Anglo-Saxons come in and invade, they're invading with the same type of faith that the Celts have. Still not great, but it's not like they're eradicating a people. They're more mixing within, and all DNA really shows that. And you see that the faiths are very similar anyways. They've all lived in the same areas for generation on generation. Those bell beakers that are Germanic and bell beakers that are Celtic, so like such a bigger mix. It's really bad. I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and turn them off. I can see that it's probably shitty in there. Let's just do it that way. It's such a bigger mix that that influx really isn't where the collapse of the indigenous lifeway and thought process comes in. In Britain and in that, or in Northern Europe, right? Those come in later. And those come in later when you see Christianity coming in after Rome has made it a state religion. And when Rome makes it a state religion, it spreads all over mainland Europe, right? But once Rome makes it a state religion, and it can start getting power enough behind it to be able to send out postulizers, then it can actually envelop Britain into that postulization, right? And with that postulization, this is when we were talking the other night about the early church leaders being female, because if you're going into female led communities, being a female is a positive, right? So when we're looking at this, we absolutely see that uh, that spread throughout actually knocks everything out. But that is not the topic of our conversation tonight. The topic of our conversation tonight is actually amazing and beautiful. This is Neanderthals. This is Neanderthal art behind us. And this is not the most amazing of the Neanderthal art that I have. So this is a piece in a cave in Spain, Andelys Cave in Spain. And Andelys Cave in Spain is 65,000 years old, and it shows this beautiful Neanderthal art in it. Now, the oldest piece in this cave is the ladder. The and if you're on YouTube and you cannot see the artwork behind me on TikTok, if you go to the Widda Ord site under this week, how peaceful YouTube, as it is said. If you go to Widda Ord under this week, it will have a list of the pictures. It's not the artwork that's behind me on TikTok, but if you look at the cave, you will see that the cave has the art. You'll see the whole cave of the ladder art that we've been talking about since the last one. So you'll see it. It's really pretty. Oh, yeah, it's a little bit easier to see the art over here. So I'm fixing that. That's what I'm working on with the website. Also, if you are on YouTube and if you are following me on YouTube, the rest of the house clean keeping is I am switching over my YouTube channel. The one that everybody is on currently was a personal channel for me. And as this kind of blows up, it's already trolly as fuck. And I've been doxxed before. I was doxxed in 2020. So I'm not about to play with that game, and I'm not allowed to put my family in that jeopardy as it goes really big. So I'm switching out of that YouTube account. I have linked it, at least like in the things so you can find it. I would ask that everybody go ahead and try and transfer over that as soon as I can. It will go live, and I'll be going live on the prior YouTube account until the YouTube account can go live, and until I can ensure pretty much everybody has switched over. It would actually be helpful if, as you switch over, you unsubscribe to the old one, because then I'll know when everybody has had an option to switch over. And I want to make sure that everybody gets over. If you don't, that's okay. But it'll let me know as it goes down if people are doing that. With Neanderthal art in cave walls and stuff like that, what we're dating is not the artwork itself, but the patina that covers the artwork on the cave wall. So anytime you see stone that has not been exposed or isn't like getting a lot of like traffic over it to like, roll or like, brush or like graze, over it, you're going to see that stone builds up this layer of what we call patina. And the patina that the stone builds up over it. Ducray. I don't think Ducray's here. Are they? They might not be here. I don't know how. Oh, okay. Hey, Ducray. So as sorry, my brain. As the patina builds over the stone, you can go to the layers of patina and date the layers of the patina right over the ochre, which is the red stuff here, or the charcoal, which is the black that you see in cave paintings. You can date the patina with carbon-14 dating. And in dating the patina with carbon-14 dating, you can take that and find out what the age is before, right? So like the patina has to cover the artwork after it's already happened. So you can find out the before age of the artwork. So if it's like 64,000 years, then we know it's before 64,000 years, right? What we seem to understand with this particular piece is that the ladder is the first part of it, and then the rest of the pieces come on later. And you can't really see it on this, but you can probably see it on the picture on my website. But it almost looks like there's this guy, like so he's a little bit insectoid. He has like 3 arms if you look at him over here, but behind him is kind of like this hey beautiful is kind of like this post, and he looks like he's either tied to the post, or some people have not misinterpreted, have interpreted this as a chair or a seat, because it also seems like it envelops him, right? And so there's a lot of different art within this. As we were talking last time, there's these little animal figurines in there, and then there's all these dots on the top. Could this be a and it's not, but it could be a barn, and it's a three-story barn with the rain falling off the top. It could be a corral, right? So there's a lot of different ways that it could be interpreted, right? Oh, thank you. Um, yeah, they've been saying that to me too. What it is right after the Cheddar Man thing came out, there was a debunking article that came out like 2 weeks after it. And nobody's ever debunked the debunking article, but there's been a lot of stuff published on Cheddar Man being dark after that. And everybody's like, well, nobody's debunked it, right? Oh, birthing chair. That I had not thought about that one, Alon. That's real. That could be very real. Oh, so we have vulva from uh carving, engraving into the stone and walls from Neanderthals, where they engraved vulva into walls. That one's on the website too. It's really cool. They're like little triangular vulva with like little lips. It's really cool. But yeah, it could be a birthing chair. That's absolutely possible. When we're dating that, and getting that earliest date, again, it's anything before that, right? So it could be earlier. There's a lot of changing as we're getting new information out, right? Or not information out, new techniques. We're learning new techniques, right? As we're starting to incorporate new techniques into the different things that we're doing, we're seeing this huge change coming in the way that we actually deal with our understanding of these things, right? We've pushed back some dating. We've changed the way we think things are happening. Um, there's a couple of different pieces tonight that I'm really interested in. One they're deciding is Homo sapien, and they're pushing back the date of Homo sapien only by the fact that they cannot understand this as possibly being Neanderthal. And when I show it to you, after seeing the picture on the wall behind me, you're going to go, why does that not compute if that so? We'll talk about that one in a hot second. Um, but they have a lot of beautiful art. Their beautiful art includes renditions of animals. And one of these pictures that I'm going to show you tonight, it looks like renditions of people with bows, right? And this beautiful art also includes a lot of different patterning. And this beautiful art that includes patterning to me is going to really kind of double down on the idea of record keeping, the idea of keeping these thought processes, the idea of understanding um, sharing of information, right? Uh, what are some of the techniques with the dating? So my understanding is that the carbon 14, the patina, but I'm not exactly sure what the techniques that they are using. I know that they've got like a bunch of different, they've all got these huge long names, and I can never remember which ones are which, because they've got different ones for rock walls, and they've got, or for the patina on the walls, and then they've got different ones for soil samples, and then they've got different ones for, wood, and then they've got different ones for, just these different types. They've also got different ones if it's underwater. So I'm not exactly sure. And then they've got like different types other than just carbon 14, like the rhenium thorium. They've got another one that just scans the whole thing. Just, and that's not even the lidar one. There's another one that scans the whole thing. So it just gets really weird to me. But I do know that it is the chemicals in the patina itself, and I do know that carbon 14 is one of the dating techniques with that. I just don't know what all the other ones are. And if you're talking about the techniques that they would have used for the art, I would say that they probably are using a few different techniques. Like some of these I'm thinking, or you would look at and think that they're like, to make this broad line behind me on the wall for the ladder, right? Is this something where you're putting ochre on your fingertips and rubbing it on the wall? Or is it Maybe you understand the idea of putting on some leather and then rubbing the leather on the wall, right? Yes, thank you so much. Welcome to the new subscribers. Harris is amazing. He's like on top of it all the time. Um, so with that, I I would say that these different techniques are, just the same kind of different techniques that we're going to see ourselves in the way we're doing things, like using the tools that are available, using the things that are there or that our mind sparks with, right? Oh, if I do it this way, that might work, right? And again, because we've been scientists from the very beginning, we're curious, we're creative, we're constantly testing new things and trying to see if that works differently. We do that almost every okay, so some of us are extremely routine based, and we have to have that exact same routine to really do anything. And nothing in this world is monolithic, right? So I in no means we no way mean to indicate that this is a monolithic of the species, but most of us, and especially the younger we are, try something new a couple of different ways. I'm going to, if I'm wrapping something, I'm going to wrap it maybe this way the next time, but I might wrap it this way the next time, right? Just because I might test out and see, well, did it worked like that last time, but is it going to work better this time, right? Can I make it work better? Can I make it work better? Can I improve this, right? And that's really just a part of who we are. So I would say that they're going to use a lot of the tools and techniques that they have at hand, but they're also going to have that spark of understanding as that comes along. I am going to pull up some different pictures because I have some different ones on here that I'm really enjoying. And I'm going to show them on the that's Joey. Let me get the cave art up. I'm going to show them on the TikTok and then I'll bring them over on the YouTube. Let's start. So I'm going to start with the one that's on the wall behind me of what it looks like in its cave and in its space, okay? And I'm wondering if I can actually, let me see. Hold on 1 second, sorry. You got the worst of it, I'm telling you. Let's see if it will go. It will. Okay, so I think I can do them at the same time. So this one is the, let me see something really quick. Yeah, okay. So this one is the art behind me. You can see here is the ladder. Okay. You can see the rain or whatever it is that's coming down that wall right here. Hoping that my hand isn't in front of the other too much. Here's the figurine, right? Look at the variation of coloring in the wall itself, in the stone of the wall, right? This white and then this kind of honey, ambery color that's kind of mixing through. And there's all these other marks as well. Of note is over here is a horse. Let me see if I can make sure that everybody can see this right here. This is a horse, right? So, this has got some really beautiful artwork on it. This is the one I was talking about that is just amazing because it really looks to me like we are seeing a bow and arrow right here. Tell me that that's not a bow and arrow. Can you see that? That's got your arrow here and your bow. Here's the front and here's the back of your bow, right? This looks almost like a drawing of almost like a compound or a recurve, right? And if you look at these beings being killed, look at this on the back right here. Those, and I'm not sure if on YouTube it's popping it up as much as I would like it's as visible. It is a little bit, just not as clear as I would like. But right here, this looks like an arrow coming out, right? Down here, it almost looks like there's a person on a horse almost. Not sure if I can. There we go. See? This here looks like horse legs, right? And then you've got like a horse head right here, but you've got this figure coming up off of here. And then if you look, again, here's that bow and arrow. Here's a space that could almost I mean, just the curve of it, right? And there's several other cattle and horse, different kind of figurines. I think actually these all look like they're horse if you really look at it. Like there doesn't seem to, those are more ears than they are horns actually. Let's go. This is the one I was talking about that's like a vulva. These are carved into cave walls. And it looks almost like lips. It's all in a triangular shape. And there's like this distinguishing line between internal, external, like, you know, womb and external. And this looks like a start of another. You have still here, just kind of like slide through. And then that's a little bit more of the jewelry side, which we'll be looking at. This is in the Spanish cave as well. And you can see all of these little dots in among this. Like this all looks like it's little dots that have kind of almost bled together. But I love the look of these walls, right? And this is something that we were talking about last time. The sitting in the middle of this cave, I'm going to go ahead and turn these cameras around. That is so I think actually, no, hold on a second. Let me go back around. Let's look at these first. So I don't think that these actually classify under the jewelry idea. Good night, Dan. Hi, everybody. Because we don't really know what they are. But there is a bone. It's got marking on it. Look at this. And this looks like accounting marking, right? Like that doesn't look decorative at all. That doesn't look like it's that's not markings that you're doing to actually like try and get meat off. That's not how that kind of markings come about, right? Or the shape or the way that those kind of markings lie. And it really looks like it's just this almost like if you're looking at it like it's just like accounting. It's like you almost expect it to have this cross slice. Now, if you look down really close here, you'll see these tiny marks here. These are the marks that happen when you're cutting the meat off of the bone, right? So these are a bare bone that you're deliberately marking something into. You're deliberately doing an accounting, a tally. I almost expect a cross hatch to say 5. I mean, that to me, that's 8, right? Like, and the start of a 9 over here, right? Like, it really looks like an accounting. It really looks like something we would do ourselves. This is another art piece. This is, well, I don't think the other one was art piece, the counting, the tallies, but this is considered art. This is chevrons. This is an early sculpture. This is about 45,000 years old. And it kind of has this kind of flowy to it. Why did they do the chevron, or why did they do this one where they're marking on the bone? Spain is the caves. Let me pull up the actual websites that I have that have the articles on these. This chevron one is I wanted to say this is Saxony. So this is France area. That's not the one we're on. This here, this is 60,000 years ago in Western France as well. This we're going to talk about tonight. This is the one that they are saying is absolutely evidence of symbolic writing or symbolic markings for writing. And this is France. The vulvas are also in France. A lot of our finds are either in France or Spain. I don't think it's so I'm not sure if it's really so much doodling on some of it. Some of it I think has a lot to do with trying to express your understanding of reality, and trying to uh, give that understanding of reality a little bit better of a firmament to it, right? Like a double down to it, right? Um, so some of it, I'm sure, probably is doodling. So if we're looking at things like, and I don't think I have any handprints, right, on any of these. I think that the handprint ones are absolutely doodling. Things like this, where it's almost just a line of stuff, this could be doodling. Um, This I don't think so much as doodling, right? These things to me seem so in a lot of early cultures, in a lot of later cultures even that don't have the symbolic writing that we do in the way that it's like an alphabet, which is specific symbols for specific syllables. You'll find a lot of pictographics that are actually documentations of things like hunts or a year. Like this might be the year that they joined with the Homo sapiens to go hunting, right? You see that the bow, and we believe currently that the bow is a Homo sapien tool. This could absolutely state that the bow was a Homo neanderthalis tool as well, and we just haven't decided that yet, right? But it could be that documentation, right? It could be a few different things. But other things like this doesn't seem like doodling to me, because it looks so deliberate and so much like marking. And the same with the other one that I can't, not this one, the one that won't pull up in here. So let me go ahead and pull this one up. This is the most recent one that they are really like has been out and about, and we've heard about a lot recently. So this is flint, right? And you can see it here, or obsidian probably, right? And you can see this here. So their idea with this is that it's symbolically engraved, and this the way they are interpreting it is that it's an early form of written expression. Um, to me, I can see what they're saying. So to me, it looks like you have three mountains, right? Three chevrons that seem to be kind of like lined up, right? Yeah, the bone with the line. Yeah, and the reason that they think that the bone with the line, okay, so this is the one that they're saying is definitely they believe is writing, right? An early writing. This is this new one that just came out that everybody's like freaking on, which I think is really cool. The reason I don't believe that this is just doodling, I'm going to pull this up really close here. You can see, so first of all, this shows no evidence of remodeling, which we wouldn't expect it to, right? But you can see that this is obviously, you see these little cut marks down here, right? But it's not Where's the other one? I have, let me find, it's not going to be that one. It's not going to be that one. Oh shit, did I drop it? No, 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 no. Okay, so there's another one that actually, oh, I know where it's at. I've got to open that up though. They have some that actually look a little bit more like, and I'm not going to open it up this time. I didn't open up prep and I don't want to do it like I've got to go through a bunch of stuff to get to it. But they have stuff that shows kind of like cross-hatched marks that could be like doodling. Stuff like that I would think are more doodling. The reason that I would not say this is doodling is because it seems like such a deliberate thing, right? It seems like there's these very firm, deliberate markings in this thing, and it also it's straight lines, so it's not like if it's doodling, I'm kind of connecting these and I'm playing around with it. There's no sense of play, right? There's no sense of, let me see if it works like this or let me do that, right? Sapien is us, Erica. Uh, Neanderthal's brain is larger, and ours weren't elaborate at the time either. And some become more and more elaborate as time go on. I mean, so this one is pretty elaborate, right? There is, and I don't have it up. I've got it like, okay, so it's really hard for me to make sure that the ones that I'm getting are absolutely Neanderthal ones. Because it's the start of it. Yeah, because okay, so it's that start of that symbolic thought, remember? So this is jewelry. We'll touch on this in a second, right? But I'm going to go ahead and pull this around and we'll touch on a couple of the things that we've been talking about so that we can answer a couple of questions, okay? So, especially since we're like only 83 people in here, so it's not like it's trolley. So, yeah, it looks like counting just on how you space, right? Right. It was very much, it really, like you remember when we were taught in school, at least in, some of the older generations, mine and before, I really don't know. I think they're still teaching it, but who knows? Oh, shit. Sorry. Let me toss you on my ground, right? So remember when we were taught to do the 4 and then do the X or, cross them? That's what it really reminds me of is that 4 and then the cross. Oh, this does not want to like. I've got to figure out a better setup for this. I'm working on it. So sorry, YouTube. I apologize. See if I can get you to come back to me. So, what it is, Erica, is the fact that when we're starting, it's like fire, right? And on stone tools, when it's the very first one, it's very crude and it's rough. And as we experiment with it and as we test it and as we play with it, it becomes more and more in depth and it becomes more and more complex. We and Neanderthals start developing these things around the same time period. We see that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens are already having mixed together in the Levant for probably at least 50,000 years by the time you see that, well, yeah, absolutely, at least, because 100 to or 150 to 50,000 years is the mix in the Levant. The Neanderthals are still around until 30,000 years. And all of these finds are at 64,000 years. And I think 50,000 years is the other one in areas that Neanderthals are not in. One of the ones that we're going to discuss tonight is actually 41,000 years. And they're saying it's Homo sapien just because they don't think that the markings work for anything else. When we're looking at all of these things, we're looking at the very start of our brains being what it is today. Remember when we've talked about early Homo sapien and early human, early Neanderthal, Homo erectus, everything but Naladi has a brain like this. It's shaped like an armadillo shell, right? Like it's shaped in this kind of half pie, right? And this is your forehead. It's low and it's sloped. This is your brain. And then you have this big part of your brain, of your skull. This is not your brain. This is your spine. Then you have this big part of your skull that sticks out behind your spine that, is a couple inches sticking out there, right? And if you're Neanderthal, you've got a bun on the back of that, right? But inside of this, our brains are starting to get larger and larger with us and Neanderthal. And it's thought at this point, I think, with Denisovian as well. And in that larger space and in that larger um, capacity, that's not where we get our intelligence that we think of, right? Like that definition of our intelligence versus other intelligences. What that comes from is that 5 life stages that we've talked about when we talk about Homo erectus, right? That 5 life stages that we have that nobody else, including Neanderthal, had. And it's because during those 5 life stages, our brains are growing. If I have the longer period of time for my brain to be able to grow, then I have a longer period of time for my brain to learn. I have a longer period of time for the synapses in my brain to build. And there's certain chemicals within this that come about as this starts that they see that fires synapses within the brains faster. And it is that faster neuron firing, I think is what the correct verbiage is, that they say gives us our higher level of intelligence. I kind of debate on our higher level intelligence. Going to be real, going to be honest. I don't think we're the most intelligent being out there. I think we can be a little stupid sometimes. But when we look at that and we realize that it is that brain development, that further life stage, right? Not the development within the body, but the after development, right? Because of all animals, we have the longest time of brain development, right? So brain development stops when an animal is fully able to sustain itself on its own without help from, I mean, we all have to have communities, but without help from parentage, right? Without help from the adults in its life, right? And so many animals like can walk when they're born. A snake doesn't need a mother, right? A fish, right? Like there's so many animals that don't have any parentage at all, right? The minute they're born, their brain is fully able to do all the things that it needs to do to get there, right? Whereas for us, we have to go through this extended period of nurture. And it's that extended period of nurture that gives us that faster neuron firing, that malleability. And to me, this was the important click my moment factor with it. It is the malleability that gives you the ability to see beyond, to take that to the next level, to not just build a house, but to build the next generation of the house and the next generation of the house. It is the malleability. Think of malleable, right? Malleable is the ability to mold and change and grow, right? It is our malleability that gives us that greater knowledge because we, unlike all other groups, are constantly taking in information and building on it, right? So when we look at that, what we understand is that it's not about the size, but it's about the shape. And we see that the shape comes from the start of this understanding of the esoteric, the start of the understanding of something else. And again, I'm not an omnipotent, and I don't think that this indicates omnipotence. But it is that thought process that It's not just about surviving, and that there is a creative element to it, right? That my life isn't just about eating, staying warm, and defecating. My life is also about creating, right? My life is also about nurturing and tending. And that is because of the interconnectedness. Abstract thinking, that's a very good verbiage for it, right? So that abstract thinking thought process, thank you. And that ability to kind of conceive a step, the next step, conceive that there is a next step, right? Starts before our brain gets to this stage, and it's what develops our brain into this stage. So we don't see our brain get to this shape fully into like 30, 40,000 years ago. But we see abstract art, symbolism, jewelry. We see all of that in both us and Neanderthals prior to that. We see it in Neanderthals at least 60,000 years ago, 64,000 years ago, right? If not earlier, and we just haven't found it or dated it because we're currently pushing a lot of caves back older, actually, right? Um, and as we're looking at that, we're also seeing burial happening around that time, and we're also seeing jewelry happening around that time, right? And so if all these concepts are coming together around that time, and all of those are the concepts that we have and that we associate with that higher level of intelligence, right? Then it tells us that we're developing those same concepts with Neanderthal. If Neanderthal hadn't, so I don't want to say extinct because they're in us, right? But if Neanderthal hadn't lost their genomic whole, then they would have had the same brain we have now, right? Because they're developing that same thought process at the same time we're developing it, right? We don't know. We haven't studied what hominin life stage or Homo sapiens life stages were when we study what Neanderthals life stages were. Like, we don't see a comparative. We don't see whether or not our life stages at 40,000 years ago or 60,000 years ago were only 4. Could be, right? Could be the having of the 5 life stages comes when we get that global lobular brain, right? Which is when the brain goes from this shape to this shape, which is the same shape Nalani had, right? Which is fascinating on a whole different level. But all of that comes with the start of art. All of that comes with that spark, right? That spark of conceptualizing the abstract, having the idea that there is a concept of abstract, right? Not literal and only literal, but that there is an abstract, right? Again, all of that comes because Homo erectus is able to invent fire, cook their food, and all of that brain growth that's happening in our children and our babies and our in utero, all of that excess calories that cooked food has gives that brain growth as a greater level, like their brains are able to grow. So we see with that, this is that spark. Are there any parts that I didn't answer of any of the questions that went through? Because I did get caught on that one. And I want to make sure before I go on to the next. The cut marks are deep and deliberate. Lots of work in communicating. I think that they are communicating, actually, absent. Or do you mean on the latter? But if we're talking about communication, I'd absolutely believe that they're about communication. That's, to me, exactly what it is. It's about communication. Well, I wouldn't call them so much alien. I would call them our cousins. That's the way I like to refer it. We descend from the same species. So our grandfather species is Homo erectus, and we both come from Homo heidelbergensis, which is kind of like our parent species, right? So um, we're more cousins than anything else, right? Like two separate groups of Homo heidelbergensis create Homo sapien and Homo neanderthalis. I said it was flint, and then I said it maybe it's obsidian because of the way it looks. You're talking about the one with the white crust on it. It could be something else. It could be obsidian. I would assume that it's either flint or obsidian. Striking marks, no. And the reason it's not striking marks, if you look at them, okay, so a striking mark is going to give you almost the same kind of a mark as a flake, right? Um, And because of that, what you're going to see is that it's going to be more of an off. It's not going to be the deliberately scratched lines, right? Because if you look at that, that's lines that are deliberately scratched in the calculus on the outside of that piece of flint, right? Because flint, you want to get rid of that entire calculus to make your knife. And you nap the calculus off. You're not going to use that calculus area to create your knife. It could be decorative on the knife itself, right? Instead of writing. But that in and of itself could also be marking of a name, right? Like this was Uggs, right? No, absolutely. Campground. Was animal domestication a mistake in our human evolution, specifically with cattle and horses? Animal domestication really comes with that agriculture too. Right, and we've talked in here a lot about that, and, actually, my book goes into that a lot. The fact that, agriculture and, the stratification that agriculture came with for Western agriculture, um, actually has caused the destruction in our country, in our world, like, it's caused globular. Awesome, champ. Thank you for clarifying. Um, and so I think that, when we look at that, yeah, absolutely. Well, and they also come from being in cities, right? Disease comes from being in enclosed spaces with people. Having so many people in the same space causes disease. If nothing else, through the passing of the common cold, right? Like, if nothing else, then through walking down the street and brushing up against somebody, right? Oh, I absolutely think that that could have stunted our evolution. Well, and it's absolutely changed us evolutionarily, right? Because we've absolutely had a lot of changes that happen to us due to animal husbandry, because pretty much everybody has animal husbandry, right? Not everybody, but pretty much, right? Even places that don't, even places that don't use lactose, like the milk of animals, still have a lot of animal husbandry with them, right? Um, and I think that oh, absenta, that's absolutely possible. The latter equals not a vertical barn with rain, but a river and aerial view pens with the hill enclosing the bottom end. Pens between the river and the mountain. Yeah, that triangular on the bottom of it absolutely would have been a mountain, or could have been a mountain, absolutely. Um, well, Neanderthal DNA is in everyone. And it absolutely gives some protections, just like Denisovian DNA gives some protections in the people that Denisovian DNA is in. Um, oh, yeah, I love the aerial view. I think that the birthing pen is absolutely real. You guys over there are so cute. Um, Yeah, all cultures have dogs. All culture or and many different cultures have birds that they domesticated. Like we talked in here about the Australians domesticating cassowaries at like 18,000 years ago, or at least raising and imprinting cassowaries and using them possibly for hunting. We've talked about Neanderthals using capturing and utilizing raptors for hunting, specifically golden eagles. Oh yeah, yeah. Did you not know the cassowary one? Ooh, mean. I've got that one. Um, so I've got a website up now in widdaord.com. Um, and on it, I'm transferring over everything, so don't think that that one's up yet. And the link tree was being problematic, so even though it's on the link tree, I'm not sure if you can get into the link tree right now. But by mid this week, I should have everything transferred over. And I'll have a page that does specifically on stuff like that. So I'll have that for you up there. But they have, and you can look cassowary find 18,000 years ago, and you'll find it, right? And what they're looking at is they're finding cassowary eggs that, you know, how there's that delicacy that is the almost hatched bird that you cook the egg that it's almost hatched, right? And it's like the fetus of the bird that you eat. There's evidence of that, but there's also evidence of shells that were allowed to hatch, and that balut, yes, yeah, and it is East cultures, and it's actually Polynesians just domesticated chickens, I believe that I know of, Asia and Polynesia, um, and balut, yeah. And so with that, they're showing that they actually were hatching out some of the cassowary eggs, and they believe that they did that so that they could imprint them and hunt with them, which I think is fan fucking tabulous because it makes total sense. Um, but yeah, there's evidence of that, and then there's evidence of Neanderthals working with golden eagles and corvids and using them. I do identify as a bull. Are you a cow? I mean, you're going to be rude like that. Hi, Johan. Um, but yeah, yeah, Polynesia and Southeast Asia. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Chickens actually are such a great thing to allow wild because they will actually help you tend, right? Because chickens will actually garden. They help keep down bugs, right? And their scratching and stuff like that will actually like encourage the soil, and it kind of, helps plants. But chickens, and then the manure is really healthy too, right? And then eggshells, I mean, huge calcium with them. Chicken are actually really great for ecological gardening, right? Indigenous ecology gardening. Um, I mean, you want to make sure that you're not letting them be an invasive species in an area, but they're absolutely really good. Um, but we can see there's absolutely this domestication that goes back pretty far. And it makes absolute sense for me, right? Especially because birds imprint. If you have an animal that imprints, it's easy. That makes sense. See, Africa chickens, I believe that. And I know like there's such a I love had animals my whole life, farm animals my whole life. Chickens are actually really beautifully diverse. I love banties. They're my favorite. They're so pretty. There's a lot of different types out there of birds that are just absolutely great when it comes to chickens. And there's a lot of like once I can, I'll have chickens again. Chickens are fun. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on into jewelry because I think this for me is really important. And self decoration. So we know that Neanderthals are using ochre to decorate body. Oh, I'm not sure, Jed. I am going to be doing tools though, like hunting tools and stuff like that. And I actually found evidence of, what we talk about with that spear, building spears out of a fire. I found evidence of that one, or an actual like picture of evidence of that. Um, I will look on the fishing evidence. I think we have some evidence of fishing hooks, but I will have to take a look again, and we'll be discussing that. I don't think that's next week. I think next week we're doing some. I think we're doing food and medicine next week, but I'm not sure. But I will be going into tool assemblage, and we'll talk about fishing evidence then. But I do believe there is evidence of fishing. I just can't like picture off the top of my head. When we're looking at self decoration and self adornment, we need to understand this in the same way that we understand the paintings and the artwork. This is that identification of the abstract, right? This is when you stop being an animal and start being a part of a clan, a part of a band, a part of a group, right? This is when you start having expression of identity. Okay. We do this today by wearing makeup, tattooing our skin, the clothing that we wear, the colors of our hair, the way we cut our hair, these different things that we do, right? All of these things are that expression of self that really comes with that understanding that we have an identity that's a personal identity, right? That interpersonal understanding, that deeper understanding that there is a self, because that's another one of those things that kind of sets us apart. As far as we know, we're the only ones who really conceive of identity and self in the way that we conceive of identity and self. Other groups do have clans and family groups and stuff like that, but they don't seem to indicate the self can be picked out of the group, right? They don't seem to indicate that there's an individual instead of the whole. Whereas we see, well, it depends on how early you're thinking, old hippie. Because early as 3,000 years ago, and as far as I know, we do not have complex fishing tackle 3,000, not 3,000, 300,000. And as far as I know, we do not have complex fishing tackle 300,000 years ago. Also depends on what you consider complex versus what I consider complex. Because as somebody who's fished most of my life, I have an understanding complex a little bit more. And there's several different ways that you can fish that aren't tackle complex. Complex really includes a hook, a line, and some form of a lure, right? Or some form of a bobbin, or some form of an attachment to a line so that it's not dragging, right? But I do know that there is evidence of fishing. With the jewelry and with the painting of self, we also find evidence of piercing. When we find evidence of piercing is we find like bone that appears to be like fine sanded down, that would be like in regions of like the body, like nose, or facial reasons, right? Snare or net. Oldest. I'm not sure on the oldest on snare or net, but I know it's not 300,000 years ago. I know it's not 300,000 years ago. When we're looking at this identification of self, what we're looking at is how the different things that they use for the self-identification. So we know that they're using ochre. They're probably using charcoal too if they're using ochre. And if they're using both charcoal and ochre in the caves, then they're probably using both charcoal and ochre on self, right? Ochre is kind of like this clay that you can kind of like grind down, and you get a powder that you mix with water. Excuse me. And then you can paint your body with it. And then you can do the same thing with charcoal. I mean, you kind of have to do a little bit of a finer grind, and you kind of have to, and also you kind of, you can mix this with fat too, and it'll work really well. Thank you, Yakora. So this painting and the decoration of the body itself. Not only are we seeing that there's evidence of piercing and there's evidence of painting, we're also seeing evidence of different things used. So we're seeing that there's the evidence that was just showing up on this screen about the. Let me go ahead and pull you guys back around so we can go into this one. Hold on one moment. Just 1 second. It's probably going to put you skyways. Sorry. Maybe I can do that. And let's make sure that this is in the right spot. Hoping that you guys can all see very well. See very well. Okay, stay there. Nope. Stay there. This camera does not like me. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to turn you guys around here. So here we see on these, this here is tool marks, like where you can have, it's a slice, like it's a deliberate cut in so that you can wrap leather around it. Here we see holes drilled. To drill a hole, you have to have an awl concept, right? This is an animal tooth being used. These are probably bone. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure what they identified it as. This is another animal tooth over here. You can see the structure of the tooth here. And then this is shells. And you can even see within here that there's kind of like this ochre pigment right here that kind of darkens the shell itself. I want this. So currently they're stating that this is early Homo sapien. Well, not early. They're saying this is 41,000 years ago. I believe they said Poland. I don't think it can be Poland is my problem because let me find. Here is, it's Polish. So this is something I was just seeing tonight. We've got to figure it out a little bit more because there is no evidence of humans being up in that area that early. None whatsoever. And they're saying that they think that this has to be sapien, even though it's found in the same strata as Neanderthal teeth, because this seems to be a moon cycle. I don't know if you can see it. These are all little dots, and it comes up here, okay? And then so with a moon cycle, we often think it patterns in a circular, but the way you chart it isn't like that. Will this live be on my page? Hi, Tamara. It's good to see you, love. This one will be up on YouTube. So you'll be able to see it on YouTube. Some of these pictures are up on the page. I don't think this one's up on the page because I don't think I could pull that one up on the page. But some of the pictures are up on the page. But this is the way it's charted here. Wait a minute, it goes up like this and like this. That way of charting, there's this bend here, and then it swings out here typically, and then comes down around and back up. That is indicative of a phase of a moon phasing. Okay. So this is an amulet or a pendant, they believe, because of this hole here. They believe it's worn. They're attributing it to Homo sapien. But they're attributing it to Homo sapien because they don't believe Neanderthals do dot artwork. That's all. That's why. Even though everything else about the cave is Neanderthal, in a Neanderthal time period, in a Neanderthal area, because the dot artwork is not something that they see in Neanderthals. And I want you to compare this with the wall behind me. Dot artwork is something we see all over the place with Neanderthals. There is disc artwork, the red dots, ochre work everywhere with Neanderthals. So this is really weird to me. But this is early pendants. Whether it's Homo sapien or Neanderthal, more time will tell. Um, yeah, well, and they're learning every day that Neanderthals did more than they did credit for or get credit for. This though, I love this. I love this showing of the tool marks on here. A couple of these would not open into singular images for me, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have all of them because I want to make sure I've got them all for you. Okay. So I want to go ahead and come back to this one. Again, when we look at this could absolutely be, if this is a knife, though let me look really quick at something. I'm not sure if they have dimensions in here. So this article will be up on my website shortly. Again, I've got some work I'm doing and trying to get everything else done. I'm not sure if that's going to open for me. I'm trying to see. Small flint flake. So it's definitely not like it's a knife. At 11 of these sites, incisions are present on flint cortexes. So I'm going to have to look at this one a little bit deeper. Okay, so I'm going to flip this back around. I'm going to set you guys right here for a second while I put the YouTube back up. Sorry, people. Sorry. Let me make sure you guys are back up right. It looks like it. Yes. Let's readjust you guys. We will get to that. When we're looking at these different things with the Neanderthal, again, like we were talking the other day, what we're looking at is a complex group of people, right? When we're looking at cave art, if you sit and look at the art, you see this beautiful use of color schemes between the colors that they're using, and the wall contrast, right? The colors on the walls are already like these beautiful reds and whites. There's this blend and this patterning that you see through it that kind of like in some of these pictures makes you almost look like you're sitting among clouds, right? So if you are, I bet they do Allens. But they should be specifying that it's Homo erectus, or not Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalis. They might not be specifying it is. I know that they've been wanting to say that it's further back than it is, but no evidence supports that I know of. So if you put yourself in the middle of one of these caves with these billowing clouds of ceilings, with the light flickering off the walls, sitting on your really nice furs that you have stacked up that make a really comfortable seat, with your kids and your family and the other members of your band who are all, friends, different species sometimes. And you're eating dinner from something that you killed today that's fresh and delicious and has that nice crunch to it as you bite into it. You can smell it through the cave. You are content. More content, I would say, than many of us are sitting in our spaces today, right? You have that community and that joy. And your home is this beautiful variegation of colors that seems to dance and be alive around you. And you think of it as alive because nothing in your life has ever told you any different than the world is alive, right? Nobody indoctrinated you into any other thinking than that the world is alive. And so your community, your thought processes, the way that you work with this becomes this contentment that we're missing, that we do not have today. And when we think about these groups of people as being primitive, I think it's important to understand that that's not primitive. It is, in fact, pretty primitive to ignore suffering. It's, in fact, pretty primitive to isolate yourself at the expense of yourself and others, right? It's pretty primitive to hoard at other people's expense, right? Especially at other people's expense. It's always primitive to hoard. Um, so for me, I think there's an importance in changing our understanding of what primitive means, right? And that these groups of people are not less than human. They think and feel and emote and interact in many of the same ways we do. People were way happier, absolutely, absolutely. Um, I'm actually really exhausted tonight. That's why I meant to came in earlier, but I had some other stuff that I was trying to get up so that everybody could take a look. So let's go ahead and have any questions on jewelry. Um, and body decorations. I would say that we really don't know a lot of specific patterns, but seeing the patterns that we do have, I'm going to say that you're going to see lots of dots and you're going to see lots of chevrons because those are the things that you're seeing artistically. So facial decorations might include lots of dots or chevrons. Body decorations, clothing decorations might include lots of dots or chevrons, maybe some triangular shapes. These are things that we're seeing, right? The wavy dot lines. Yeah, well, and when you said that absentia, that absolutely made sense, right? Because I've seen other spaces where it's demonstrated like that. That would absolutely make sense. Well, and if you look at those dots, and I noticed this the very first time I was shown this picture, there are four lines of dots. There's a sharp turn in that corner, right? And there's two spaces where those lines of dots are or one space where those lines of dots are more than four, and that's in that curve to kind of give that depth, right? So it really absolutely has this almost mathematical element, right? Well, they absolutely could have tattooed. So currently, our oldest tattooing tool that we have found is 35,000 years old in a cave in France. It is a cave that they currently have not found older usage in, but it's possible. Um, and the reason is because they realized about 5 years ago that a lot of the flakes that they thought were discard flakes are actually tattoo tools. So what happened is they found something that they thought was a discard flake and it had a little teeny point on it. And when they tested it, they found blood and ochre, blood residue and ochre residue, right? And so now they're identifying that many what they thought of as discard flakes could actually be single point tattoo tools. And so they're now identifying that the idea of tattooing goes back. Well, and I did a whole thing on tattooing because tattooing is pretty important to me, actually. You can really see it really across all cultures, and specific patterns have really impactful meaning in different cultures, right? That's where appropriation really comes in, is using people's specific patternings, right? But when you look at the act of tattooing the whole body, like the Picts were tattooing from their forehead to their toes, right? So you see that the whole body has been tattooed everywhere across the globe, and properties within the tattoos too, like the different herbal properties, the different things that are tattooed with, the different ways that are traditionally tattooed. So some different spaces, of course, we probably all started out with single point flakes, right? But some spaces are going to have You'll see in like Polynesian spaces or islands in the South Pacific, it's like this. It's almost like a hammer setup, right? Like it's a rod with almost like what looks like a comb, but it's often just a single or maybe two or three needles that are all like tied together and like this different thing in between different things. And then you take that and then you hit the top of it. And this is how they do their tattooing, where some spaces will take a bone needle and just a single needle and do it, and some spaces will actually stitch it into the skin and do it. And some spaces will take a line of needles that are done in like in bone or in stone. And so there's several different ways tattooing can be done, and much of it can be very specific to culture. Only when you're talking about um, tools that represent a specific styling within the tool, um, properties of the ink for tattooing used, and the patterning within, right? And again, certain things that we like to think of as being unique to certain cultures very much aren't. Lines are not unique to anybody. Everybody does lines, everybody does dots. Um, we just saw that Neanderthals were doing chevrons. Chevrons is something that's often thought of as unique. Um, and like Otzi has lines and dashes. Otzi has lines and dashes on meridian points that we're using in acupuncture today, with the ink being made out of herbs that are from burning the herbs. So you burn the herb and then you grind the ash of that, and you use that ash as the ink for the tattooing, that are specific for body ailments that can be cured in acupuncture by using acupuncture on those specific spots that Otzi's tattoos are on. How's that for how far back Eastern medicine goes? Right? So yeah, and it does. It is very universal. There's a lot of people, especially currently in the Turtle Islands, who are very against chin tattoos, deciding that chin tattoos are specific to Turtle Island Indigenous people. And while there are specific designs that indicate specific groups within Turtle Island Indigenous people, and those things should never be appropriated, a chin tattoo in and of itself is not indigenous just to Turtle Island. The Ainu people tattoo their chins, also their lips or the whole lower of the face. Um, it's not fuck, my brain dropped it. I don't think it's Polynesian. It's a different Austrasian group that does specifically the Maori. Maori do a specific chin tattooing. Thank you, Allison. And so you see. Oh. So we have some knowledge of medicine and herbs, and we will be talking about medicine. We will absolutely be talking about medicine and Neanderthals, but we absolutely do see that there is herbal use within Neanderthals. And so I would assume that there's some pain management use within Neanderthal. We know that we have pain management use in Homo sapien at 31,000 years ago, with the foot amputation that we have at 31,000 years ago in Borneo. And the evidence within Shanidar 1, the Old Man of Shanidar, or Kreb from the Earth Children series, and La Chapelle 1, or the Old Man of La Chapelle, one of these being genetically tested as female. That evidence is of old people who lived in pain for a long time. So it's likely there was some pain management with that. Yeah, absolutely mean. And there's specific stuff that is specific to different cultures and spaces that has. I am fascinated by the nose tattooing on Maori because it looks like birds. And I'm totally positive it's corvids. And I'm never going to go to a Maori person and go, is that a corvid beak? Like, I mean, like, is that what that's supposed to be? Is that what it could? And in my space and in my head and in me, I'm like, it's so super exciting, because to me, the idea of relating that strongly to to a corvid or to a bird is just beautiful and huge and intense and deep, right? But I feel that it would be considerably rude for me to walk up to somebody and go, "Why exactly is that? Like what's the purpose behind it?" Where my fascination is so full of love and admiration and thought process, it doesn't always come across like that, right? So I don't want to sit there and go, "Ah," but I really want to like, "Ooh, why? Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me," because it looks so like connected to this concept that a bird connection can bring, right? So it's huge to me. Like, but the patterns are, yeah, I could. Well, and I'm not thinking on women. I'm actually thinking on men. The ones that I've seen are all have been on men. The complex fishing tackle mean Neolithic. New Stone Age, probably. That's a little bit more likely. Absolutely. New Stone Age meaning the last part of the Stone Age. And so that's possible. It might actually be, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's Paleolithic. I just don't think it's 300,000 years ago. I think it's like 40,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. I mean, I believe that there's a possibility of complex fishing tackle or like, hooks and lures within Neanderthal. I just would have to go and double check it, which is why I'm waiting until we get to tool assemblages to double check it. I just know it's not 300,000 years old. It would be hard for me to find an indigenous Australian tattoo artist around here. Yeah, and that would make sense, and it would totally make sense. I mean, if you look at it, it looks very much corvid. It is specifically corvid or raptor to me. That's really pretty though. I love it. Um, and but it is specific patterning, specific shaping, and it is specifically about a connection, right? So I find it fascinating and beautiful, and I have bird connections, but I'm never fucking doing that tattooing on my nose because, I mean, even if I were to get a nose tattoo, I wouldn't do that, right? It would be okay for me to get it would be okay for me to take, uh, uh, knot work and do a knot work patterning of a raven, right? If I was really connected to ravening and maybe do like some skull work and knot work patterning of a raven and kind of turn myself into a raven and do it in a Scandinavian style or a Celtic style, right? That would be one thing, right? Well, if you're taking the designs and you're taking the meaning behind them and you're twisting them, if you are taking your own culture and looking at the indigenous thought processes and relating thought processes that are same, right? That in itself, and then pulling out what would be appropriate for your indigenous space and not taking the stylistic patterns or the spiritual patterns or the spiritual meaning, it's a totally different thing, right? I will. I think I've seen hornbill stuff. But that's what we're talking about, that it's not about space. It's not about almost every culture has a connection to animals that is a idea of a spiritual connection to animals, right? Whether it's a seal people or a salmon people, or whether it is Oisin who could transform from a deer to a man, right? Or whether it's skinwalkers, or whether it's berserkers, right? Almost every indigenous culture has this idea of a connection of either being able to transform into or having a guide within an animal. So if my guide that was an animal was a golden eagle and I'm Eurasian, golden eagles are Eurasian. This is an indigenous connection within Eurasia, right? Whereas if I had a bird guide that was Turtle Island indigenous and I was Turtle Island indigenous, then it would be a bald eagle, maybe, right? These, just because they're both eagles, don't mean that one is appropriating or taking from the other. They're two different birds, they're two different spaces, they're two different understandings, right? I don't know if they practice jewelry for medicine mean. I do believe that they practice jewelry so they have shells that look like they probably mixed ochre in them and then wore the shells as jewelry. As in like maybe they carried their dishes to mix their ochre in. Um, but I'm not so far seeing anything that I can attribute to medicine. I will keep a lookout though and see if I can find stuff, anything that might be attributed more towards like childbirth or something like that might be. Um, if you look at animals and the energy within animals, you can see that there might be medicinal properties thought of in things like bears or birds, right? Like the imbuing of that strength and that energy. So that could be interpreted as such, but nothing that's a straight correlation that I know of. I'll keep an eye out though. I'm probably going to pull up different images or maybe a couple of the same, but like the significant ones, like the markings ones. But I'll probably have some different images on jewelry on Tuesday morning too, so that we're getting a couple of new things in there too. Um, trying to think. I got a whole bunch of stuff on medicine and Neanderthals too. So I'll go and look through the stuff I have on medicine and Neanderthals because that's a significant one for me. I really love looking and seeing how far back things like that go, especially having grown up with an indigenous medicine and, doing indigenous medicine for a good portion of my life. It's really cool to see where we can see it in the ancients. Okay, I am going to take off. Again, the book is up. Unfortunately, Amazon made me put a 99 cent as the minimum and it would allow me. But it is free for Kindle Unlimited. Hopefully it's also free for like Amazon Prime. I put up an ask for that. And I am looking at other sources to publish it for free on so that you can get access to it. It does do a first 3 pages on it for free on Kindle, but I mean that's no fun, right? And so I am getting it up though. We will have it in a free format soon. It just is going to take me a second. It took me a minute to get it going, and I kind of need to recollect for a hot second. And if you don't mind, I mean, I'm not going to stop people. I just don't want, I know broke, right? Like I'm broke. Like I don't want people to feel that they have to give money to get to something, right? But let's go ahead and let me read before I leave the first couple pages. It's only about 26 pages long. Um, Inalienable rights come with inalienable responsibilities. And before I speak further, I want to state that this is all educational content, TikTok. So if you decide that somebody's pissed at me for what I'm saying, I am reading a book and it is educational content, and I do have the right to read the book. I cannot expect another to uphold my right to life if I do not uphold theirs. It is a simple, innate concept with a natural consequence. Why would you have my back if you think I will stab you and yours will you stand guard? How is this beneficial to a species whole when the biological drive is not to replicate self but to propagate the species? Yet Western thought seems to ignore this and think it can place value on life based on what can be exploited out of it. using an arbitrary, equaling based on random choice or personal whim set by a ruling class scale. It weighs the value of your life in a system designed to wring you dry for the benefit of a dark triad supreme class. Dark triad equals Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism, all lacking the ability to feel or care how their actions affect even their own children. Only that actions serve a self that thinks it is superior. This class values a lack of empathy and emotion, viewing this lack as the pinnacle of human nature, dominant, controlling, and in charge. Alpha does not exist in the wild. It exists in captivity to provide care for one's band, non-familial group, when imprisoned by a predator, allowing those who display these traits, alpha, to enter into their class because they see them as equal human, while valuing all other life as less than human and therefore exploitable. Deciding if your life is an inalienable right based on a scale that they have actualized to serve themselves. Actualized using a very inhumane, cruel set of morals and values based on their very narrow, monolithic view of human perfection. They rate human life as equal or prey. In this main character view of the rest of the world as property to exploit, this ruling class has perfected twisting your perception based on othering to remove certain beings' right to life. This twisting of your perception was to support the experimental stratification, and it is the only part that works. We see it from the start of Western agriculture 10,000 years ago in a city called Angazal in Jordan, where our first man-made biome destruction starts, human-caused climate destruction. Having ownership and control of land takes away an indigenous biome's right to life, and thus the earth becomes one of the first beings we see this inalienable right removed from, not due to natural order, but due to dark triad traits. The circle of life kills for continuance all the time. I'm not telling you to stop eating meat. It is even beneficial for grasslands to burn for regrowth. When you couple this with a ruling class of god kings, read narcissists, whose focus is maintaining power to hoard, one sees the start of othering. The first god kings maintain their armies from the food you supply and they hoard. Due to traumatic and abandoned childhoods where they developed the fantasy that they had a deity parent, wrap their entire worth in this concept, hoarding keeps the demons of childhood deprivation at bay. To convince you that they need to maintain armies without you realizing those armies are meant to keep you in check to serve their hoard building, they created a dogma. This dogma was meant to distract by creating fear in an outside enemy so you missed the inside enemy. And hence, the barbarians of the hills are coming to steal your abundance, feed my army to save you, was born. Over 10,000 years, the barbarians in the hill is stuck, but added to the reasonings for othering are nationalism, roughly 6,000 years ago, that other city isn't like you and wants your wealth, gender, 3,000 years ago with the Greeks, who would rather be intimate with preteen boys than women because women are broken men and have thoughts of their own that can't be controlled, unlike preteen boys. Religion, 1,600 years ago, when Christianity was appropriated from the Judaic people by Rome in 400 CE, who'd already appropriated gender othering from the Greeks. Constantine used a monodeity to become sole emperor, making all other religions sin and eradicating science and medicine as questioning God. Race in 1492, when Europeans land on the Taino people and needed an excuse to eradicate the indigenous people of Turtle Island, North America, which they document as being close to God and their kindness and communal care, so religion won't work. And finally today, when we have added houseless people to the list of people whose inalienable right to life we have removed with othering. Each of these is based on an arbitrary value set by a dark triad supremacist class who prizes a lack of human compassion above all else and dehumanizes those who display it, giving them the ability to remove an inalienable right. Where was the inalienable right to life granted to George Floyd? His was removed in a slow press torture that we hadn't seen since the Salem witch trials. How can the conversation be anything other than stopping the dark triad ruling class from thinking their stormtroopers are allowed to be judge, jury, and executioner in 9 minutes? Giving one person with a penchant for killing Black and brown people the ability to make George his fourth victim, 4 men whose right to life was removed by a serial killer still granted his own right. Where is the inalienable right to life in a government that creates anti-abortion laws that kill women for the sake of electrical pulses and cells that have no heartbeat, while being pro-eugenics via forced hysterectomy of indigenous people? How can you guarantee your own right to life without guaranteeing that right cannot be removed based on an arbitrary value? What happens the moment that value changes and you are no longer one of the valued? I would posit from my observations in a broad range of people who follow Western thought that the greatest fear, and that which affects all other actions and reaction, is the knowledge that an arbitrary value can be changed at whim. Deep inside, we know that when the corresponding responsibility to uphold another's right to life is ignored, the right is no longer inalienable and can be removed if a being is found lacking in value. More importantly, if that scale of value is randomly set by a group whose entire ethic is exploitation, your right to life stands on shaky ground. Innately, you know it. Innately, you fear it. Your life has value in existence alone. You have value and worth to your community, even if all you ever do is sit by the fire and tend it, nurturing others to help propagate the species. You are valuable. That is not even finished all the way to the first thing, which is on space, but I'm going to leave it there. I'll probably actually read this out and put it up on YouTube so that it's there to be read out or listened to for free as well. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great night. I'll be back around Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The website is up. I have switched over my YouTube. If you are in YouTube, sorry about that, absentee. I was reading and didn't see the thing. If you are in YouTube, I'm asking that everybody go ahead and transfer your subscription on YouTube over to the other channel. It is Widda Ord with 3 dots at the end. It is linked in the nwiddaord.com so that you can find it from there. But I am going to transfer everything and keep that one a private one since it's got all my family stuff on it, and I don't want everybody to see what my kids are watching. So I am transferring that over. Everything is on the nwiddaord.com site. And the shop is up, though. And if you're using PayPal, it'll take me a minute to ship anything to you to do order fulfillment because they are putting a hold on. But there are t-shirts and things like that. There's a shirt on there that is my favorite, and it says "aw" with a bunch of fireworks around the "aw." Did I oh fuck, I can't think. Brain freeze. Did I point out the flaw in your white supremacy? And then there's another one that says turning glass ceilings into forest floors so we can breathe once more. So you might like those. And I've got a few other things going on, and I will be back Tuesday morning. Have a great night, everybody. Bye. If you're still over on YouTube, bye, guys. Remember, transfer over to the other one, though I will be doing lives here still until I am able to live stream over there. Night, everybody.